Welcome to Southeastern 16, presented by FanDuel. This is SEC basketball reaction from games of November 11th. I'm Chris Lee, filling in for Max Barr, who's hurt today, joined by Blake Lovell. We're going to get into the games from last night. Here is your scoreboard. Kentucky falls 96-88 at Louisville. Auburn, a 93-62 victory over Wofford. Ole Miss, a big 83-77 win at home over Memphis. Also, Arkansas 93, Central Arkansas 56. Oklahoma 95, Arkansas Pine Bluff 69. And last but not least, Florida, a 78-76 victory over Florida State in the O'Connell Center in Gainesville. We will talk about all those games, not necessarily in that order. But Blake, first order of business, tell us about our friends at Game Time Sidekicks.
Chris, I've got a better idea. Why don't you tell us about our friends at Game Time Sidekicks? Because Barry the Wonder Dog is barking over here like crazy.
Yeah,
and if I don't get him in, I'm not going to be able to give you any outstanding insight on today's game. So I'll be right back.
Well, Oreo's outside. Let's hope it stays that way. But hey, look, if you don't have your Game Time Sidekicks, what are you doing here? Game Time Sidekicks makes officially licensed stainless steel drinkware, every SEC school, 350 other universities, stainless steel sippy cups, tumblers, 40-ounce bottles, shaker cups, SE16. Get you 20% off your entire order at GameTimeSidekicks.com. I love my 40-ounce water tumbler. I filled it up. You can hear the ice. That will stay icy for a while because, man, their stuff is good. You can use it to drink from. You could even use it as a weapon if you had to. I hope you never get to that point in life. But, man, this thing is solid. All right, Blake.
All right.
We back in a good spot here.
You know, believe it or not, we are going to start with the Kentucky game. I know that's going to surprise some people since that was the biggest game of the night. So we will start there and give you some thoughts on the Cats and Louisville. 96-88. I told you guys yesterday that line was about as mysterious as it gets. And I said, they're going to take my money, aren't they? And you guys knew when that number got to 6.5, I could not resist over at FanDuel. And, of course, Louisville misses about 84 straight free throws at the end of the game, and I'm thinking, all we need is a little three-pointer here. Somebody knock down a three, get this thing under 6. Didn't happen. Louisville wins by 8. And, yeah, plenty to discuss in this game. I know Mark Pope's big thing was, I think he pointed out the stat, right, the assisted turnover was the big thing for him. Louisville 20-6 there, Kentucky 14 each. 14 assists, 14 turnovers. That was a problem. Our guy Brandon Ramsey, I thought, though, had one of the better points. And that was just, in a game like this, there's going to be plenty of overreactions. Trust me, I understand. But there are some good things for Kentucky I want to discuss too. But when you're on the road, you're playing a high-powered Louisville team like this who are going to get up three-point shots. You know how they're going to run their offense. You cannot have poor defensive possessions. And Kentucky had poor defensive possessions very early in the first half, and as Brandon pointed out, they had poor defensive possessions very early in the second half. And it led to, I think, 9 points in each, where it's like you have some of those, Louisville just knocks down threes, and boom, all of a sudden, you're down double digits, right? And you can't get down 20 on the road against that kind of team and expect to win. You just can't. So I thought that was kind of the thing. You know, we had hyped up the defense and for what we had seen so far, and we had said this summer they were going to be a better defensive team. But, Chris, here's the thing about that. It's not always just, hey, this team is bad defensively. And I know we don't want to do this with Louisville.
I know exactly where you're going. Yeah,
it may be okay to give Louisville a little bit of credit here in that that's a pretty good team, and that's one of the better Louisville teams we've seen in years. So I hate to do that here, folks, but I think that plays a part too. But combination, some bad defensive possessions, some good offense on the Louisville side, and you're going to get kind of a result like that, and we'll talk about the other stuff here in just a second.
Yeah, Brown's a little bit of a headache to guard. Going to be that for a lot of teams. But I think the big takeaway I had on the other side, Kentucky really loaded in the portal. They got some good experienced guards. And I think Aberdeen and some of those guys, Lowe, who they just got back, he's probably trying to round into form. But those guys were more – I'm not going to call Aberdeen a volume scorer because Florida had other guys. Lowe might have been more of that at Pitt. But, Owe is their most efficient scorer. And I think when he's off like he was last night, he just wasn't the factor that I thought he'd be down the stretch. Ideally, if you're Kentucky, he's your go-to guy, and he's doing what he does when Otega Owe is at his best. And I think that's really what Kentucky missed offensively last night.
But I told you, too, in the text, the reason why I think I'm not as surprised by that is that he's not a great three-point shooter. And when you're chasing the way they were having to chase, you're going to put up more threes. And I just think that's why, towards the end there, of course, Aberdeen's going to be a guy taking shots. You got Lowe trying to make plays. I think, Owe is going to be fine. I believe that. I think it's one we're sure. He would have liked to make a few more shots, but he does. He goes 1 of 6 from 3 in this game, had 5 turnovers. So, again, too, if you're going on the road playing a top 10 team and you expect to win, on paper, you need your best player to probably be the guy, be the go-to guy he was last year where he just took over games, and that was that. But I don't know if the expectation this year should be that Otega Owe is going to take over games from 3 because it's just not going to happen, most of the time. Because, again, he's in terms of, volume, what do you make, 27, 29 threes last year? It's, not a ton. And so I think, who was it here? Let me find it. I think it was Steve. Steve brought up a good point, too, where it's Kentucky was just rattled. And I think that was very clear early on, and especially once the game starts to get away a little bit. And we said it yesterday, Max and I were talking about it. It's hey, this is, these are the kind of games that you love to play a month from now. You don't necessarily love having everybody can say, oh, what a great game and atmosphere and all this, but I can tell you right now, coaches don't love playing this game number 3. No. I would hate to be in this kind of setting for your 3rd game of the season where you've had guys in and out with injuries. You've still got guys that are out, no JQ, no Trent Noah. And so it's a tough game. But we always say the difference between this and football is that these are the kind of games that you have plenty of time to learn from that aren't going to just completely destroy you when it comes to resume or anything like that. So I think, yes, there was a lot to be desired, I think, overall for the performance for Kentucky in this game. And I just think it comes down to the defensive element. They just were not as good defensively. And, again, that's a Louisville team that took 43s. And we always say, we use Alabama, I feel as the barometer there. When you have teams that just put up that many shots, and that's been the thing with Louisville. We knew it was going to be that way under Pat Kelsey. And they are knocking some of those shots down. They hit 13 of 40, which isn't a great percentage, but still, they hit 13 threes, right? Got to the free throw line 31 times. So it's just, and again, it's their 2-point percentage was 62%. So that's, a lot of that's defensively, again, for Kentucky, where they just, whether it's miscommunication, whether it's going under a screen when you should go over, so all of these different things. So I think that was the combination of things that led to this result being what it was. And again, Max and I, you guys followed it yesterday live as we're watching this line, and we're just what is going on right now? Because all the money was on Kentucky, the bets were on Kentucky, and that thing just kept going towards Louisville. And that's when you knew, Chris, our friends, they know what they're talking about. The Vegas crowd, when that line starts moving like that, they saw something, and sure enough, it kind of played out that way.
You used the word chasing. I thought that's a good way to kind of sum up Kentucky's offense. I mean, I know they play fast and they've got a green light to shoot threes, but it just felt like, and I think that, again, you said this earlier too, that was the game script was set up by Kentucky's inability to defend in the second half. And I think that's, if you can sum things up in a couple of sentences, that's probably the best way to put it last night. And then when you needed those points, your most efficient score was on an off night.
Well, but I think you can also play that to the other side of who expected Denzel Aberdeen to have 26 in this game. I don't know that a lot of people did. And I will say, and someone, it may have been Chris in the comments, that just asked, well, what were the positives for Kentucky? Well, I'll give you some of the positives. the fact that this team is shooting the ball better is a positive, because everyone knows if there's one thing me and Max have been on about, and I even wrote it literally this past week for over there at the Basket Under Review, I said, why are we expecting Kentucky to be a great three-point shooting team when the numbers suggest they're not going to be anywhere close to what they were last year or even the year before when they were the number one team in that category? But the past two games, 11 of 28 from three against Valpo, and they go 12 of 34 for 35% in this game. That is encouraging. That should be encouraging if you're a Kentucky fan, because that is something where if you can just make outside shots, the game gets a lot easier. Like it really does. And so I thought that was at least something where you follow up a game where you probably should have shot it well against Valpo. You shoot it well on the road. That is a nice sign, I think, for them moving forward. But again, I wouldn't say that's going to be the expectation. I don't think they're going to make 10 plus every single game. I know Pope wants to get to 30 attempts. I don't know if this team will ultimately be the team that can do that consistently. Because again, the percentages tell us that maybe they won't, but I still think that's something you can take away and feel pretty good about it. I got to give a shout out to Cam Williams, because everybody knows that was my guy this summer. I just kept bringing, I know Holly just brought it up in the chat, like Cam Williams gave them some really good minutes, and this is where I think the depth of Kentucky is going to come into play. He only played 12 minutes in this game, but how important were those 12 minutes that he played? Where he comes in, knocks down a three, made some big shots, and so I think that's what we're going to find out. Remember, they're still going to get JQ back. Trent Noah didn't play in this game. The depth is still there. Jasper Johnson played, 7 minutes in this game, went 0 for 4 from 3, and that was it. That was his box score. So it's like you're going to have some of these where they just have so many guys they're going to run in and out, and eventually they're going to figure out what that rotation should be in these kind of games. But you could tell in this one, right? They played 10 guys, basically 10 or more minutes. And that's nice to have that depth, but Chris, once we get to March, I don't know that you're going to have 10 guys playing 10 or more minutes, right?
Yeah.
And so that's going to be shortened a little bit. And so Jalen Lowe is going to be fine. I know I can see people overreacting already. This is his first full game back, and you're asking him to go on the road, play a top 10 team in a hostile environment. He plays 30 minutes off the bench, 9 points, 5 assists. Yes, he had some turnovers. And yes, maybe the shots will start to fall more eventually. And again, maybe there's some things he'd like back on some of those possessions. But I just tend to think that I know it's Louisville, but I will also say the same thing we've said about other teams. It's early, and there's plenty of things for these teams to work on. And let's call it what it is. This is the reason why we had more questions about the SEC coming into the season. It's a reason we've harped on it. It's like, I don't think we should expect the SEC to just completely blitz everybody the way they did last year in non-conference play. They're going to pick up more losses, and this is why. You got so many new pieces for a lot of these top teams, and I just think it's going to fall back somewhere. You shouldn't be expecting the SEC to just dominate the non-conference like last year, and that NCAA tournament number of teams, I think it's going to go backwards, but that's just how it works. So,
two more things I have here. I sent you and Max a text last night. I said, do you really want Denzel Aberdeen to be that big a part of leading your offense? And I slept on that a little bit, and I've been thinking about it, okay? Aberdeen was your third guard at Florida last year. He was not a guy that had to step into a big role because you had Walter Clayton. And I didn't really think that was going to be a part of things, again, because of Owe and some of the other guys. Like if you'd said Denzel Aberdeen is taking 20 of Kentucky's 68 shots last night, you probably said, I'll take the no on that. But he did, and he scored 26 points. Like he's never taken that many shots in his career. So you have a guy that has shown he's willing to step up and be – like you have guys that are complementary guys and guys that are willing to step up and lead an offense. And he was willing to be that guy last night. So that's kind of interesting. Maybe that plays out later in the season now that he's gotten a shot at a different role. Maybe it's something he can grow into. The other thing is Colin Chandler continues to give them stuff. The highlight reel dunk the other night that people talked about. He's 4-6 from 3 last night. He was a guy that last year in spots, I remember doing conference play, really flashed. And so that's another piece I think that Kentucky can can really maybe build on with him?
You're going to get, I mean, let's be honest. You're pretty much going to get all your scoring out of your backcourt and perimeter play. Because if you're looking at the front court, you're not expecting Brandon Garrison, Mo Diabate. Like, I know Malachi Moreno, which he's been, I think, a nice bright spot for them early.
Mm-hmm.
He's played more than some people thought he would. I just consistently, when it comes to like the offensive approach, you're going to get most of your production from those kind of guys. And that's where like Chandler's going to be hard to take off the floor. Again, once Lowe gets back into things. I mean, he played 30 minutes in this game, right? And again, it's his first game back, and you're put in this kind of setting. And I know, like, well, he played against Valpo. First full game in terms of like this kind of game back.
Different.
Like there's a big difference. So I think like that's the thing. And like I mentioned, like even someone like Jasper Johnson, right? He comes in this game. He's a freshman, 0 of 4, plays 7 minutes. That's it. But you look back at the previous 2 games, you're like, okay, man, he's played pretty well. He's gotten off to a fine start, and of course he had the the highlight in the Purdue game in the exhibition, and so. I look at this and feel like it's one where you have to just give it a little time. And I think some of these things will play out. We don't know the full answer as to how they will. Again, what the distribution is going to be minutes-wise for some of these guys a month from now. But as we've said, I think the depth is still going to be a strong suit of this team. It's just you have to get everybody on the same page at once. And so far, in a game like this, and again, even going back to the exhibition against Georgetown, yes, there are some things that probably concern you a little bit if you're a Kentucky fan. But I'm not ready to overreact to all of them just yet. I just think that, Oweh's got to be Oweh. And once they get JQ back, I don't think we can underestimate the type of impact he's going to have on this front court. But for now, you lose by 8 on the road against the top 10 team, rivalry game. And there are some positives I think you can take away from it, whether it's the shooting, whether it's just Aberdeen having a game like that, or Cam Williams. But there are also some things that you have to be better at, and that's not having those kind of turnovers, not spotting your team, a 20-point lead, and the defense has to be better in those kind of situations. So
yeah, you mentioned acquaintance. I mean, that's another thing to keep in mind. Again, let's remember game flow, how it started. They're without the guy that, according to what he did last year, was overwhelmingly their best shot blocker, albeit it happened at Arizona State, and their best rebounder probably outside of Mo D. So again, some stuff to be determined with the Cats because they just haven't had all their guys yet.
Great point from Big Gator EJ. Never seen Denzel Aberdeen make a 3 and the team lose. Of course, that was one of the wildest stats last year.
Thing last year, wasn't it? Yeah.
And speaking of, great segue, because I think we can move on to Florida here because, I think Florida would love to have Denzel Aberdeen knocking down threes right now because they sure aren't. The Gators hold off Florida State 78-76. Now, I can't say I expect this to be a 2-point game, but Big Baller Brett, who was in the chat somewhere, can probably confirm that Max and I said Florida State underrated. Coming into the season. And again, I don't know that I expected this to be that close because what was the spread? It's like 18.5 or something, 18.
Mm-hmm.
But I think we weren't really giving Florida State enough credit, I think, on a national level because you could see some of the things where this team was going to improve. And, the story of this game, boy, we talk about just reaction and all kinds of things. I think you got to give Florida State credit. Well, McCray went off on him again. I feel like he did that last year too, didn't he, Big Gator EJ? What did he go for, 29 in this one? Just had a big game. And, I think it's one where, he goes 29 in 34 minutes. Just was tremendous for them. Florida State's shooting a lot more threes, put up 34 attempts, only made 9 of them, but that's going to be kind of a theme for sure under this team. On the Florida side, which is what everybody wants to talk about. So Xavier Lee, I know is the person who's getting a lot of the blowback right now. And if you look at his numbers, Chris, they've not been pretty, right? He goes in this game 1 of 10 from 3. He went 2 of 8 from 3 against North Florida, went 3 of 11 from 3 against Arizona. So he's not playing.
He's not a
10%
3-point shooter like he was last night.
Yes.
To say the least.
My thing will continue to be you can't. First of all, the expectation should not have been, and we said this all summer, right? We should not have expected this backcourt in 3 games in to be as good as Walter Clayton, Elijah Martin, and Will Richard were at the end of last season. If you were expecting that, you were setting yourself up for failure. It was not going to happen. Now, can they still get there in a different way? Yes, and I think that's one of the things I wrote last week too. How Florida gets there eventually is going to be a different way than they got there last year, because you're not going to have, I think, a Walter Clayton, right? And Boogie Flan, I'm going to give you some positives about him in just a second. But I think you're not going to have that same sort of thing. That's the kind of season that, of course, you get a national championship, and that's the reason. It's a very unique and special group. But with Lee, you can point out the issues with the shooting right now. It's a guy who is clearly still trying to acclimate, clearly doesn't have the confidence he wants to have from 3 right now. But you also can't just isolate the bad plays and say that's who he is, because he also had 7 rebounds and 6 assists and a steal and a block last night. And so I think, and look, he played 36 minutes. So like it or not, here's a guy that I think if you're Todd Golden, you're probably looking at it, the shots will eventually fall. He will get more comfortable playing with this particular team and against these particular opponents. They've already played a top 5 team in Arizona. They played a Florida State team, like we said, I think is completely underrated coming into the season. But, basketball can be pretty simple. If the shots start falling, he's going to make a big impact. But they're not right now. And guess what? It's not just for him, because Florida is now, 19 of 90 from 3 so far this season? Chris?
Yeah, they're one of the bottom 25 teams in Division 1, and you've got a stat and I've got a stat too. I'll let you share yours first when you get there.
Yeah. So I think here's the thing. So they're shooting 21%, 335th nationally right now. And yes, again, Lee's got to play better and he's got to make shots. There's no question, because if they're going to be successful in the long run, he has to. He has to be more impactful, I think, score a little bit more. They're going to need that, especially the shooting. But my guy Neil Blackman points out Florida's 19 of 90 right now through 3 games for 21%. Guess what they were through 3 games last season? They were 19 of 74. That's not that far off, right? And they were 29 of 101 or something through 4 games last season. So they're shooting sub 28% in both last year at this time, and now they're shooting obviously a significant percentage lower. But I think that will eventually come. And like I said too, don't forget, you cannot expect this team to, I think, shoot the ball as well, especially just yet, than the team did last year. Because, again, we pointed out all the reasons, like Will Richard and Clayton and those guys, and how well they shot the ball against Aberdeen, right? So I think it's still a work in progress for Florida. And I don't think that should be that big of a surprise, because on the flip side of this, people can point out all the negatives with Lee shooting and their overall shooting. But at the same time, if you watch the way that game played out last night, there was one big positive. And I thought it was Boogie Flan and just the aggressive approach that this guy had offensively. If he brings that every single game, and he is just that kind of guy who's in attack mode, it's all going to eventually take care of itself, because his front court's good enough to win him a lot of games, and I think that's going to be a big story too.
Yeah, and hit a couple of big threes for them too. But last year, this roster, of course, a lot of this was not at Florida, but this collection of players shot 35% as a team. Now, having said that, part of your problem is that your best shooter in that was A.J. Brown, 39%, and he hit 54 of them, which was more than anybody but Lee. So he's not even a factor right now. So I think even in saying, okay, they can do better, I'm a little more worried about them when I dig in a little bit. Now that front court's going to overcome a lot, but that and like, did you expect this team to be a little deeper, Blake? I mean, I don't know. They're 300s in bench minutes so far.
No, because if you go back and watch all our stuff this summer, like you guys can probably tell us, like, I don't know that Max and I really spent a lot of time talking about the bench. Like, it was more so the stuff that we knew, and that was, hey, front court's going to be one of the best in the country, if not the best in the country. Boogie Flan should be fine. Lee, again, comes over, all-time assist guy, sees the floor well, should play his role nicely. He's not going to be Walter Clayton. But then we kind of pointed out, okay, yeah, I mean, you could look at some of the guys and be like, all right, yeah, we expect someone like, I don't know, listen, I'll say this. Here's maybe the better way to say it. How much do we talk about Urban Klapsar this summer? Not much at all. Because we just didn't know exactly what the fit was going to be on this particular roster. But, like, honestly, Chris, like, outside the top 6, I don't think we spent a lot of time talking about the bench. And, other than we were just maybe curious whether it was Lloyd or, again, a CJ Ingram, guys like that. But I don't know that we spent a lot of time with it. And I think, I think that's going to be a story, though. I mean, it's a good point because that's going to be a story moving forward because once you get into SEC play especially, you kind of know you're going to have games where you should expect someone to get in foul trouble every game because it's the SEC and all these plays are made at the rim and, you don't get a good whistle. That's how it's going to play out. So, yeah, I think we spent a lot of time talking about the depth of the front court, but I think it was also pretty clear that we didn't spend a lot of time talking about the depth of the back court. And that's probably for a reason because just didn't know if it was there. And so far, I think it's a fair question. But I know I haven't mentioned my guy's name yet, so I'm contractually obligated to mention Tommy H. Sir Thomas goes for 20, 13, 3, and 2 in this game. Tommy H looking like an All-American out there. Should be no surprise to anyone. But, yeah, so good game from Tommy H. And I think this was the kind of game, too, where it's like you get pretty much nothing off the bench. But I feel like there's still some things coming out of this. Yes, there's some negatives, but I think if you get this boogie that you got in the second half, Florida's going to be fine.
Well, and you have this too, and you touched on it. You've got two dudes sitting there that were both top 50 recruits in Lloyd and Ingram. You're just laying away. Like Arizona, that's a tough game to throw a freshman into if you're not ready. And I'm presuming that's kind of why they're not playing. But you do have, but most teams, don't have the luxury of having two guys like that just kind of sitting in the deep freeze, which at least one of them is doing right now.
Yeah. I mean, look, it's a dare. Jeff brings it up. Like, remember the Florida State team. That's why we said, like, people like to, and we will certainly bring up our Ken Palm numbers and all this stuff, but like early in the season, I don't care that it says 72 or whatever beside Florida State's name. Like, I don't. That's a good team. Like, they are going to wind up being a team that I think is going to win some games in the ACC. Right now, they are slotted as the 5th worst team in the ACC. I'm going to be very surprised if they're the 5th worst team in the ACC, in what is a very improved conference, as we know. I mean, how many wins the ACC got on the SEC so far? Duke's got one. Louisville's got one. So I just think you've got to put that into context, too. Like, that was a team, and someone else brought this up, and it's sometimes we can overplay this kind of stuff, but let's not forget, the defending national champions are the Florida Gators, and they're going to get everybody's best shot. Like, everybody wants to beat the champs. And so, you're going to get everybody's best, and I think that's just something that it's not the same team as last year, but they still look at you as you're the champ, and if you come out and beat the champ, that's a nice little thing to have on your resume this season. So, so a win, not the prettiest win for Florida, but I think there are still things to be determined, and there may be some things that just won't be fixed this season that we're seeing early on, but it's also a 3-game sample size, and I'm not ready to overreact to them either to this point. So,
yeah, that's fair. We're sitting here talking about it as if it's a loss, which it wasn't clearly. But anything else on that? Yeah. I mean, and again, that's gonna get better because it can't get worse.
Yeah, and don't forget, they're going to be a relentless offensive rebounding team. So even if they're missing shots, they're going to get the offensive rebound a lot of the time. At 17 again in this game. So that's something else, too. They don't have to be a great shooting team because they're going to go get the offensive rebound. So, I mean, that's just something to keep in mind. Chenyalu, I forgot to bring him up, too, by the way. 10 and 16 in this game. Kind of a given. I feel like anything we talk about with this group, just you assume the front court is fantastic.
Yeah.
I know Condon had 6 turnovers. I think that's something to monitor here moving forward. He had 6 turnovers in that game against Arizona, too. So, can't have that. I definitely can't have that on my fantasy team with Alex Condon. But I think these are early season things to monitor. They're not things to just completely make declarative statements on as if it's going to be this way for the entire season. Just things to monitor early on. All right, Chris.
Memphis, Ole Miss. Is that where we want to go next?
I'll be honest with you. That Memphis Ole Miss game was so eye-opening that I'm sitting there thinking, you know what? When I watch this game, I think about solid 14 karat gold. And I think about natural gemstones. Those are the things to me that describe Elias Kamardine because he is basically the yearly company. He's not fine jewelry, but he's built on tradition and designed for meaning. Each piece handcrafted from solid 14 karat gold. Natural gemstones made to measure for a perfect fit, backed by a lifetime guarantee. You guys know about the yearly company. The sizing is what's most important. Every yearly company bangle, custom sized. If you want that free sizing kit, 100% off at checkout. It's 100% off. That means it's free. I do the math on this one, not Chris. SE16 kit. SE16 kit is the code at checkout. Put that code in there. You get 100% off. It's a free sizing kit. Husbands buying for your wives holiday season. Make it effortless by knowing that size. Get a free sizing kit over at the yearly company. 100% off at checkout. All right,
hey, Blake.
Blake, yeah.
What you know what happens when you're an opposing coach?
What's that?
And you're watching your team try to guard Elias Kamardine. You know what you want to do? I mean, would you not want to throw your phone? Would that not be a natural reaction?
I mean, it could be. And
that's what I would want to do.
If you do want to throw your phone, our fine sponsors at Rockform are not telling you to do that, but what they are telling you is that they have the world's strongest magnetic phone case. And so you will get extreme protection. You'll get a super strong magnet. So if you throw it and you're near some metal, just assume it's going to stick to it, whatever it is. So keep an eye on that. And then they have the Rock Lock secure mounting. So if you want to make sure it doesn't fall, Rock Lock secure mounting. SEC25 for 25% off over at Rockform. SEC25, 25% off over at our friends at Rockform. And yes, as we get to this next game, Big Baller Brett says, I don't want to throw my phone, but I might throw my phone. Big Baller Brett has no reason to throw his phone right now. But Ole Miss gets a win over Memphis. And I thought, this was one I said yesterday, kind of game you got to win if you're Ole Miss, because you're looking at, and this is where we start to get into the how you're building your NCAA tournament resume and all those things. Home game, they still got some tricky ones on their non-conference schedule, against St. John's and NC State, Iowa, Miami, and so forth. So it said, look, this is a home game. You got to win it, you feel like. And they did. They took care of business 83-77 in this one. In my notes, Chris, I'll read you a 5-word statement. Elias Kamardine, who I still don't know if I'm saying his last name right. We're just going to keep calling him Elias, as Chris Beard told us to, is the truth. He's the truth. And nothing but the truth. This guy goes for 26 points in this game, had 4 assists, 4 rebounds, a block and a steal, 3 of 4 from 3. Now, he missed some of his free throws. He liked to have those back. Went 1 of 5 from the line. But Max and I said the other night when we watched Ole Miss play against Louisiana Monroe, and we're like, hey, I know you can only take so much away from a game against, an overwhelmed team, right? A team that just was not going to win this game. But the more you watch this guy, And remember, our guy Max Barr had this first summer. He was all over this guy in the summer. He is a very unique player, and I think he's going to be all SEC this season. Would be stunned if he's not. You just watch the way he plays. I think we keep using the word just smooth, effortless. This guy just goes out. I'm about to sound like a coach here, Chris. He just makes winning plays, all right? He just makes winning plays. He was terrific in this game, and easily the top storyline for me coming out of this is just how good this guy I think is going to be for this Ole Miss team.
Yeah, I mean, you got a lot of parts here. You got one of the better coaches in the league. You got guys in reserve like Travis Perry, who I think I think from what I heard, a bigger spend than you would think, as much as Travis Perry played last night. But feels like Chris Beard's got a lot of parts here. I was hearing some great stuff out of Cameron right before the season. That was kind of like the mystery that how's that going to work. My surprise is like, how is that Max Barr's guy and not your guy? That seems like a little role reversal there. Like he shoots too well to be a Max Barr guy.
Well, Max has still got his guys on this team, okay? But Max was he was studying this guy. I think Max may have been overseas taking some trips. I don't know. Like I can't confirm. But I think he just we did. The more we kind of looked into this guy this summer, like it felt like he was going to be a great fit, especially for what this team needs. And so far it's played out that way. I mean, again, he's gotten off to a great start. And as always, like, yeah, I think that was the thing. It was like, is there going to be an adjustment just going from there to this, right? To playing in the SEC and all that. But I think so far, it has been. It's one of those things where, man, he's just been so good. And, of course, another one of Max's guys on this team, Keza Giffa, another, I think, very good performance, goes for 15 in this game. He's been someone else that I think has gotten off to a good start. Of course, minutes went way up in this one versus the first couple games, but those were blowouts. So you could tell, another guy that I think just is going to make winning plays on this team. Malik Dia goes for 13 and 6 in this one. AJ Storr had 10. But I tell you, the one thing I took notice of afterwards, and you mentioned Travis Perry a minute ago, like I just think the art of having someone who can just come in and knock down threes.
Yeah.
Chris Beard was very high on Travis Perry this summer. You can watch our interview, and like he was just mentioning all the things about, and you just knew like he's going to play a big role in this team. Now, he may not play 30 minutes a game, but I think just having him, and we said he's going to make shots. He went 0 of 9 in the first 2 games. He's going to eventually knock down some shots, all right? Made some shots, and that is what you want to see from him. That's the role he's going to play. And Beard said the exact quote. He said, 3-point shooting will be an offensive identity for this team. So when you have the coach saying that, then that tells you, it's going to be something where, yes, we need a guy like Travis Perry who can come out, make a couple threes per game. And look, the thing is, they only go 8 of 13 in this one, right? They only took 13 threes. I don't think this is going to be a 30-point attempt type team, right? They're just not built that way, I don't think. But if you have guys who can be efficient, take good shots, and I thought the shot selection was good on some of these, that's what matters. And it doesn't hurt having Dia knock out, a couple threes too. Like, so I just think the efficiency and just the approach this team plays with, I feel like, again, it's one of those where you're seeing them start to get better in certain areas. And I think Beer was also happy, again, with the shot selection. But the one thing he did point out, Chris, and this is going to be no surprise, right? Wants to force more turnovers. They're not forcing a lot of turnovers right now. And I think that's the kind of thing that once you get into SEC play, once you're playing these teams like NC State, St. John's, and such, you got to get a few more of those easy ones off of turnovers. If they can do that, if they turn up the intensity a little bit in terms of being able to force more of those mistakes, this team's going to be hard to match up with.
Yeah, I mean, it just feels like they have a lot of parts that do a lot of things. Like you've got Cameron carried them in his own way last night. We saw Malik Dia just completely take over games at times last year in a different way. James Scott, I think, has been a nice add for them. Corey Chest, a guy we talked about a lot last year. We just touched on Perry. AJ Storr's played a ton of ball. I mean, I feel like they just have a lot of answers. You look at their team, I don't know that I see just like this glaring weakness. Do you?
No, I just think they're going to be a pretty solid team in a lot of areas, and I think that's kind of what you need. I mean, it's like we always play the Ken Palm game where it's like find your green and find your red, the Christmas tree.
Yeah.
Believe it or not, again, it's like the only thing that's even close to shaded red right now, and it's 3 games, and again, 2 against inferior opponents, but it's the turnover percentage defense. Like, that's it. And so if you just can force more turnovers, they've been pretty solid in a lot of areas, and I feel like that's how they're built, is they're a team that just feel like they got a lot of guys who can play their roles very well. Do they have just complete superstars at every position? Like, are people going to be talking about Ole Miss every single night in and night out? Maybe not, but you know what? They're probably okay with that. They probably like just having a team that is built off of guys who can play their role very nicely, and if they keep getting some of those things, as all teams, they're a work in progress too, but don't sleep on the Rebels. That's all I'm saying.
Yeah, and I think you look at that Ken Palm stuff, right? And some of it is like some of their weaknesses so far, 3 games in, what does that tell you? I don't know. Are a little bit more on the defensive side. And like there aren't, you can count the number of coaches on one hand that you trust to fix the defense more than Chris Beard. And he may be number 1 on that whole list, right?
Yeah, I think they'll be okay. They just got to force more turnovers, and they'll figure out the combinations to do that with. Chris asks, where will Memphis project? We said coming in, I think Memphis is kind of a TBD. I don't have that high of expectations for Memphis this season. I think right now, what are they? I know they're projected as the best team in the AAC, but Chris, let's also call it what it is. That's not, the deepest conference by any means. So I don't. Can they win the conference? Sure they can, and probably will be the favorite. But I don't know. Like, this Memphis team built a little bit different maybe than some of the others. I know Beard's high on Doug McDaniel, and as he should be. I mean, that's a really good player, and we know, as we said, they've got some other guys too. We've seen before. Max asked how much will Aaron Bradshaw play. He played 20 minutes in the game last night, but only had a point and 1 rebound. So I don't know that Memphis is going to be. If you had to rank Memphis in the SEC right now, I don't know. They're probably not very high up there, but still, I don't think that should take away Ole Miss's performance here. So, so good win for Ole Miss, I thought, there for the Rebels. All right, we're going to speed through some of these others as we always get into this, but we got some of your blowout game specials. And before we do that, though, hey, I'm going to catch up on a couple of chats here. Sam was talking about inflation earlier. There's a surprise. $22 million, talking about Kentucky's roster. Doesn't get you what it used to, is what Sam says. He's blaming inflation for that. We got a new member here on the channel, a former member, I'm pretty sure, as well. Also gifted out 5 memberships. Congratulations to those who grabbed those memberships free. And you know what? If we have time, TBD, I may be able to give out a few memberships here in a bit. Quinn, oh boy. Quinn jumped in earlier, say he was right about Kentucky. $2 super chat. Got the Kentucky fans riled up yesterday. Quinn's back to mention that once again. And also, shout out to Holly, Chris, because as I'm reading this tells me that Holly got engaged to Paul McCartney over the weekend. Congratulations,
Holly.
Tremendous. So, as you can see, you're right there on the screen. I'm not reading this wrong at all. Holly got engaged to Paul McCartney. Wow.
Congratulations,
Now, that
Holly.
is an accomplishment. I don't think we've ever had anyone, be maybe to that level. So, congratulations to Holly. Please send Paul our best. And, maybe we have to change up our musical taste here on the channel. So, there you have it.
The Cats kind of lead the world in celebrity basketball fans, so that they've added another one.
Incredible. So,
we'll
see if
membership.
I mean, it says we should. Big Gator EJ says
she's engaged. Come on, somebody give Holly membership.
I don't listen. I think Sir Paul should be given the membership. I don't think we should be paying for the membership. You got a little money from what I hear. So, there you go. But congratulations, our first celebrity engagement here at Southeastern 16.
There was one thing that you kind of glossed over. Quinn, speaking of Quinn in third person, that's a new one.
Oh, Quinn is
or in the first person, excuse me.
Yeah, Quinn is a legend.
It's early.
Quinn can do what Quinn wants. So,
that is true. We like
as long as those super chats keep coming. Brian says he was never a fan of the Beatles. Well, you got to be now, Brian. Someone in the chat is engaged to Paul McCartney. So, all right.
Can we get Paul McCartney on a stream here?
Maybe.
I mean, I feel like if he's engaged to Holly, that we can make that happen.
Yeah. We need to advertise that, so please let us know in advance. That'll be a big one for the channel. All right. Also good for the channel is anytime Arkansas and Auburn win, and they did that last night. Arkansas bounces back 93-56 over Central Arkansas. Auburn gets a 93-62 win against Wofford. We'll hit on Arkansas first here quickly. I do have a 9:30 out here. Many of big machinations going on here at Southeastern 16. We got a lot of planning to do here.
Big word for you.
That's one in my science class. Or no, not science class. What is something else? So, by the way, Moby1 wants to point out that we can't read. I think I read that exactly as it was.
We may have less than 15 minutes left at this rate.
So, exactly how it was listed. So, okay, listen, if you're new to the channel, folks, please understand that I realize that Holly has not actually been engaged to Paul McCartney. So, or has Holly been engaged to Paul McCartney? We'll never know the real truth. All right,
to verify.
Let's get serious here. Arkansas 93-56. About what you'd expect from this game. Was not a very inspired first half performance, I thought, from the Razorbacks here, but turned it on in the second half. Chris, the real story here. Carter Knox is back. Our guy. Carter Knox. By the way, everybody's pointing out that we read the Paul. Guys, I am well aware that Holly has not gotten engaged. But the fact is, what if Holly did get engaged to Paul McCartney?
I like her reality better.
Too many people taking this literally here. And so even Holly will never tell. So this has become a big thing. I thought we were just having some fun here. Maybe not. But no, we appreciate you in the chat. You guys are the best. So yes, Arkansas bounces back. Carter Knox is back. That's all that really matters in the world right now. Arkansas, again, I didn't think it was a great first half. They turned it on though. But Carter Knox, 19 points, 10 rebounds, looked like his old self here. And I think that is a big thing to monitor for them because we had said, obviously played against Michigan State, just really had 4 turnovers, 4 rebounds, 4 assists, but did not score. That was a big glaring thing coming out of that game. And good to see him back. And I think that's the biggest takeaway I had for this one.
Yeah. Trevon Brazile didn't play last night with back spasms. If I remember this right, I'll look this up to verify. He was really good in that opener, 25 points. And he's been a guy that is really flashed at times and cannot stay healthy. And so last night, him not playing, followed, or before that was not effective against Michigan State. I always get nervous when I hear back stuff. That's one thing I hated to see for Arkansas last night is that he wasn't able to play.
Well, no surprise. I still have my questions about this front court, and I think that's going to be a story this season with Arkansas, just to see how it played out. You did have Malik Ewan last night. Had 10 and 5, but I think, Pringle, 9 and 8. I think that trio right there could define Arkansas' season. It could be Pringle, Ewan, and Brazile, and I think that's could honestly be what catapults them into being maybe, a team that can make the Final Four, or it may be one of those where you get a bad matchup and, just have some of those things that sort of worried you a bit against Michigan State. And, and speaking of those kind of things, shot selection too, and our guy JC Hoops brought that up, I think, in his notes as well. I think, and I explained this after Michigan State, I think that's just going to come with the territory. Look, you've got young guys playing significant scoring roles on this team, like Acuff and Thomas, and when they're hot, they're hot. Look out. You can see that from Darius Acuff even last night. But also, again, in some of those possessions, like I said, you'd like to have back against Michigan State. That just comes with the territory. When you got 2 stud freshmen that are going to be leading the way on this team, there may be some where you're just like, boy, and people talk about the same thing with Nate Ament at Tennessee. They're like, hey, I don't love the shot selection sometimes. Well, that's just going to come with the territory. These are guys who are filling out things on a new team, and they're the guys who are used to having the ball in their hands in high school, and now they're the guys who have the ball in their hands in college, and they're going to try to make plays. And so, but when they get going, as our guy on Bryce Brim says here, they can get going like NBA Jam. He's on fire, bring out, like, that's how it's going to be this season. And that could lead to some ups and downs, but I think nonetheless, there are not a lot of teams out there that sport a duo like Darius Acuff and Malik Thomas, and we're seeing that so far. And I think that's going to be the thing that ultimately catapults Arkansas into being a really, really good team this season. So,
yeah, I mean, just so many parts that could explode at any time. Wagner, Richmond, Knox. It's just weird to see Cal with this many guys that were like heralded recruits still on the roster, a year or two later. But yeah, I mean, they're gonna they got a long time to get there with the parts they've got, and they've got a couple more weeks before Duke. So be interested to see the combinations and where they go.
And have shot it well from three against the two inferior opponents. Didn't shoot it well, as we know, at Michigan State. But I think that'll be up and down. And I think Moby One makes a good point. Like Carter Knox, just if you're feeling it offensively, that's going to make your whole game better. And like we said, this guy's look at the way he finished last season. He's going to be terrific. I just think kind of got back in the groove a little bit after Michigan State, first game back. So give him a little leeway there on that. And I think Unbiased Brim is right. Like, I feel like you do have quite a few guys on this team you feel like that can just burst out for 20 at any time. And will that happen with all of them every night? No, but you've got a lot of guys here. If you're pretty much the entire top of the rotation, you feel like can all have those big scoring bursts, and that's a good thing. So, all right, Auburn. Keyshawn Hall does it again. The non-preseason All-SEC Keyshawn Hall, who led the Big 12 in scoring last year, but just completely, we still don't know why, has flown under the radar. Just no idea why. But the guy fills up the stat sheet again, goes for, what do you have, 20? I had it right in front of me. 20, 11, and 6, and 3, and 2. My goodness. The guy does it all. Auburn wins it 93-62 in this game. Elijah Freeman, I thought, was kind of the big story. 21 points in this one. Kevin Overton had 13. That was nice to see, especially the 3. Todd Pettiford has still struggled to find his shot. I know Stephen Pearl talked about that. Pettiford has struggled out of the gate here, but once the shots start falling, he's going to be fine. But I think that's something to keep in mind with Auburn, especially early. Graham, you tuned in at the right time. Graham said,
yep.
I just tuned in and they talked about Auburn.
Exactly right.
Oh, and then Graham, you have just outstanding on your timing here. But remember with Auburn, they're playing a lot of underclassmen on this team. And, I mean, you really look at it, right? They start 2 freshmen, 2 sophomores. You're playing Magwood off the bench, or Porum, like these and so just keep that in mind with Auburn. I know people, started picking on them after the Bethune-Cookman game. They bounced back with 2 big wins here. And now your big test comes on Sunday against Houston. But just remember, it's a new team, virtually an entirely new team, a new coach, and you still have some things to sort out. You've got some underclassmen trying to get more experience. And yet, you're 3-0, and you've scored 93 or more points in these 3 games. So let's not overreact too much to Auburn just yet, even though Stephen Pearl would like to see a little more defensive consistency. Because here's the quote, Chris. You ready for it? I should have played it straight from him, but I'm going to say it myself here. Are you ready? Quote, if you don't do the little things that are required to win, then I'm going to get after your ass. That's what Stephen Pearl had to say.
You know what I think they need? They need a good fight on the bus to Birmingham for the Houston game.
Oh, no.
I mean, it worked
a year ago.
What
if that happened again? What if it did happen?
That would be
like, what if it's just like there's just something where Houston just gets everybody fired up and I don't know. So
yeah, we're here for it.
Yeah, what was the Magwood quote? Remind me on this one because I didn't see this one. I only saw I watched part of Stephen Pearl's press conference. I didn't see the Magwood quote. But yeah, Quinn's all for this, by the way. Quinn's all for that. He said, let's just bring it on. Quinn, don't be an instigator, but you know what? Maybe send a word out there and say, hey guys, remember what happened last year? Let's think about it. So just something to be something to consider. But yeah, I think like I said, with Auburn, just keep that in mind as we move forward here, because they have such a brutal non-conference schedule, and they may come out and struggle against Houston on Sunday. And they've still got Oregon, they still got Michigan, NC State, Arizona, Purdue, gauntlet of a non-conference slate. They only have 3 more games left on their non-conference schedule that I would call, some of them aren't even gimmies, but every other game is going to test Auburn in some way, I would think. And so that's going to be a good thing for this team. Now, you don't want to lose all those games. I don't think they are going to lose all those games. But just remember, I think that's something to certainly consider here when we look at it. So, and by the way, I did miss some of your Super Chats. Sorry, guys. Trying to juggle all this. Let's get to the Super Chats here. Oh, by the way, in case you missed it earlier, don't forget, Holly got engaged to Paul McCartney. So we want to make sure we clarify that.
I think Paul got the better end of that deal, if we're being honest.
Well, I mean, look, a lot of celebrations in the chat to Holly McCartney right now. So, okay. So, $10 Super Chat here says, Auburn's going to be in the mix to win the SEC again this season. They're more talented than last year's roster, albeit with less experience. Yeah, that's kind of the thing. I know you said this earlier before we even got into this, but sleep on us at your own peril. I would agree. I think Stephen Pearl's doing some things early. The schedule will get tougher. This is where we really find out how they react to some adversity. But we already had that against Bethune-Cookman. And so I think, really start to learn about this team now. You're going to need some guys to step up. Quinn's already excited about baseball season, $1.99 on the Super Chat. Chris, what are your 5-second thoughts on Auburn baseball? They're going to be fantastic this year.
My 5-second thought is it is very rare you see as many good rising sophomores in a lineup as Auburn's got. Like I've covered SEC baseball for 20 plus years. I don't know that I've ever seen a team with as many good hitters who were freshmen a year ago that really stood out. So pitching, a little thing to keep an eye on. But Butch Thompson's been a pitching coach. So we're starting to dip our toe into baseball, by the way. And by the way, Kentucky fans, if you're still here, interviewed your coach, Nick Mingione, yesterday. That was fantastic. We'll hear that soon.
We'll have that up soon. Quinn also had $2 Super Chat on Auburn basketball, starting to click some. Yeah, we always appreciate the Super Chats for sure. And yeah, I think Auburn will be okay, but the gauntlet begins on Sunday. One other thing here real quick. We were going to get into a preview tonight, but I've got to jump to something in like 5 minutes. But Oklahoma real quick. They did play last night as well. Didn't really think there was much of a notable result. They win 95-69 over the team we mentioned yesterday. It was 364 in KenPom. In Arkansas, Pine Bluff, and they moved up to 363 after that game. But, Chris, that was a student-only game. Did you know that? Or they only had the students in the crowd. So it didn't seem to be the most thrilling response on Twitter from what I saw to that. But slow start for Oklahoma. You don't want to see that in a game like this. I think as people said, I didn't watch the full 40 minutes here, but score maybe a little bit misleading. They won by 26, but it was just kind of a,
11
also maybe not the most inspired performance. Their backcourt's going to be really good, but I think you still have some questions about their rotation, one of which, Dayton Forsythe, once again makes a big impact. What did he finish with? I had the numbers here somewhere. He finished with, 15 points and knocked down 3 threes. Nigel Pack had 5 threes. So I think Forsythe's going to be someone who you're going to see as they start to build out this rotation. Like he's a definite in terms of what they're going to do. Xavier Brown with 19 again. And Tay Davis had 13 and 15. So not a lot to note here for Oklahoma. Just wanted to kind of see how they bounce back from that loss against the Zags.
Quickly tonight, Minnesota, Missouri, I guess the biggest game. Would like to see Missouri play a little better than it has so far.
Yeah, we said Missouri's kind of a tough team to figure out, but they're also, remember, the team that may have the most rotations of any SEC team in non-conference play. So give it time. I think they'll be okay.
Got another super chat here.
$10
Justice
from
DeVries.
Justice. We appreciate it.
Son of Darian DeVries, I believe, right?
I don't know. I think Justice is related to Paul McCartney, which we've already brought him up in the chat.
Right.
Sorry, the SEC conference games are going to be, conference games are going to be electric. I agree. It'll be another great year of conference play, and that's what this is all about. Non-conference, you just work out the tweaks a little bit, You see where your team stands. You got some tough non-conference schedules. As Don mentions, we got Alabama, Purdue on tomorrow night. What a game that's going to be. So great stuff. Let's see what else we got here in the chat. There was someone who had a comment earlier. Oh, yeah, Drunk Gator. Can't watch the show live, but had a comment that Sir Thomas Houck is the best player in the nation. Everyone have a great day. Well, if you can't have a great day after that comment, what are you doing? Anyways. All right. Quickly, the remaining schedule for tonight, we're going to have, as Chris mentioned, Missouri's in action against Minnesota. That's your closest game from a spread standpoint, about 6.5 over at FanDuel. Tennessee hosts North Florida, 40-plus point favorite for Tennessee in that game. Holy cow. South Carolina hosts Presbyterian. Surprising maybe for some people that spread is only at about 15. But remember, the Blue Hose. The Blue Hose, folks. H-O-S-E. The Blue Hose. All right?
Forgot that was a thing.
Keep in mind that they did get a win at Georgia State. They beat East Tennessee State. They beat Bluefield. So the Blue Hose have beaten Bluefield. They lost at home to Navy, but that's only about a 15-point spread against South Carolina. I think you want to see the Gamecocks have a consistent performance here as well. And also on the schedule, Vanderbilt and Eastern Kentucky, and Texas and Fairleigh Dickinson. So there's your Wednesday slate, and you guys are the best. What else you got, Chris, on the way out?
I was going to ask you putting any money on Vandy 28.5 tonight, the way they can score?
I may be more inclined, and let me see if I can pull this up quickly. Remember, Eastern Kentucky, coached by A.W. Hamilton, typically plays at a pretty fast pace. They did there for a while, not as fast as they used to play. They were like top 10 in the country for 3 straight years under him. They've scaled it back a little bit, but they are going to get down the floor. Let me find this over-under for this game, because I think that may be the thing I'm most curious about. Max and I always make our rock locks, which, by the way, Chris, you didn't know this, but Max and I were wrong about every big game to start the season, and we finally got one right yesterday when we tried to do the reverse mojo. We both picked Louisville, and unfortunately we got it right. But over-under 169.5, I may be on that with Vanderbilt and Eastern Kentucky.
How is A.W. Hamilton still at EKU? I thought he would have moved on to a step up. He's a good coach. I've dealt with him a little bit.
Yeah, I mean, they've not made the tournament, and I think that's the one thing holding them back.
Yeah.
So, yeah, we'll see. All right, we're out of here. As Hillbilly Shakespeare said, don't forget it, Kentucky lost because of me, and that's usually how it goes. Hey, we picked Louisville, Hillbilly Shakespeare. We tried. Max and I did our best. Like, we tried to put the mojo on the Cardinals. This didn't work. So, but anyways, always enjoy the Hillbilly Shakespeare. Always a great comment.
Just think that's a minus. If that's a plus, then bet the house.
Yeah, I would. If you're doing an alternate spread with Vandy plus 28.5, I'm curious what those odds are going to be. So, we'll see.
Be richer than Paul McCartney with that one, maybe.
By the way, Justin, I just realized you sent me a DM on Twitter. I'll get back to you. I don't check my Twitter very often anymore. So let me take a look at that afterwards. All right, we're out of here. You guys are the best. Thanks to our friends at FanDuel. We got to get Max well, because he and I will probably do our Alabama-Purdue preview at some point, either tonight or tomorrow morning. And, of course, we'll have reaction tomorrow morning. I just can't imagine us doing a reaction tonight. Just don't know that there's enough firepower on this slate to do that. So we're back tomorrow, and predictions for some of the big games on the way as well. So,
yeah, fun to be back. I'll be filling in a little bit here and there for Max, and maybe getting in a little bit on my own when I get more caught up. I'm knee-deep in football, but fun to be back. Fun to be in basketball season. Anyway, thank you guys for being here. All kidding aside, big congrats to Holly. Happy for you. God bless you guys. Thanks for watching. This is Southeastern 16 presented by FanDuel.